Hello, everybody. I'd like to open the meeting of the Fair Work Commission for the town of Groton. My name is Rob DeVoe, and I am the chairman. I would like to ask each of the commission members to say who they are and welcome everybody else here. Go ahead.
I'm Guinevere Depot. Danielle Terrell.
Thank you, Guinevere and Danielle. You are the agreed? Okay, and you, sir?
Dan Estrigan, representative of the landlord.
Okay.
Of his own property.
Okay. Roll call. Rob DeVoe was here.
Danielle Terrell.
Danielle?
Guinevere Depot.
Guinevere Depot. Okay. Do we have minutes to approve? No. And sir, who are you? I'm sorry.
Michelle, what's the town staff?
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ignore you. It wasn't an intent. Thank you. So we don't have any minutes to approve. We have fair rent complaint brought by Cheryl Atenzio, 233 Benham Road, apartment W12, Groton, Connecticut. I've read through the complaint. And the other commissioners, are you familiar? Okay. So I guess the commissioners, you've read the complaint. What direction would you like to take with this?
I have a few questions. I was wondering if Dan had some if you were able to provide any of this by chance, if you have it on hand. I was curious, the occupancy of the property right now.
The occupancy is close to 100%. We have a few vacant units that are either in the process of being
But they're rented.
but they're already rented.
Okay.
For the future.
And there's 72 units. Is that accurate on the property?
Right.
Do you know the number of leases expiring in May? Your lease was up in May, effectively. Do you know the number of leases collectively that were expiring in May that you were proposing renewals for along with hers?
No, but
The number of
I
leases?
don't. I can look it up very easily on my phone right now if you'd like me to, but I don't have that information.
I'd like to understand the number of expirations that were due at that time, because it helps us understand the landlord's exposure. And then I'm curious to know what the average rents were for the 1-bedrooms, if there is a number of average rents for 1-bedrooms, and if their renewals were in the same window as
Right.
Ms. Atencio's.
That's a good piece of information to know to make a valid judgment. Do you have any Section 8 in your complex? And if so, what is the ratio to Section 8 to market people?
We don't have Section 8. Section 8 is project-based.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Some of it is, yeah.
housing. So we don't have. We have, I believe, 2 residents that are receiving vouchers from various authorities, housing authorities.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no other subsidies at the property that I know.
Okay.
Excuse me, if I may, I mean, I'd like to, because we got a letter from Ms. Tencio. I would like to maybe give you a couple minutes to respond in general to that, because we don't have a comprehensive response to the information she's given us. So that might help us answer some other questions that we've got floating around.
I appreciate that. So the market rents for units that we have fully rehabbed at the property are what are indicated here at $17.95 a month. However, that's not what the current unit, the unrehabbed units rent was raised to. It's not what it was proposed to be raised to. That rent would only apply to a unit that had been fully renovated, rehab, new appliances, new furniture, and fixtures, flooring, all the above. This unit's rent increase was not proposed to be to that level.
Unit
W.
W12, Miss Atenzio's, what was the proposed increase?
I
Because,
believe it was $135 increase. 13.
so the amount of rent paid right now that we have, the current rent, or I should say the rent effective through the end of May was $10.50, is that correct? And the proposed rent is, the proposed increase effective June 1st.
It was 13%. I believe it was about $130 or $135 a month.
Cheryl, can we come to understand where you understood the rent was going to be increasing to $17.95?
The notices I kept getting were threatening, and when I last spoke to her about renewing my lease back in August, July, she said that they're only doing 9 months. I said, not a year. She said, no, we're doing 9 months for the older ones. She says, because we're trying to refurbish it, so we want you out of there and everything. And so I asked her, how much is a one bedroom in another place? She said $17.95. I said, I can't afford that. She said, what? Don't you work at EB? I said, yeah, I can't afford it. And so she allowed me to renew it for 9 months. And I kept getting notices threatening me with eviction, everything kept getting at my door, mailed to me, emails and everything. So, and when she called me before us leave, I asked her, is there any way I can renew the lease? She said, no, they want me out. So I said, well, how much is a one bedroom apartment for me? She said $17.95. I said, I can't afford that. And I said, I guess she read the note. She said, yeah, I know. And so that's when I started looking and can't really find anything. At least that knee replacement surgery, vestibular migraines, I can't climb up many stairs. And one apartment I was looking at had stone steps with nothing on the side for me to grab. So I had a vestibular migraine. I could see myself at 10:30 at night falling back and hurting myself. Yeah.
For clarity, do we have a copy of a renewal notice that you have on hand?
These are the exhibits.
Trying to get me out of here. That's all I have. I don't have the usual.
I don't know how you do it.
Another copy of it too.
A duplicate copy?
Yeah, this one is from, that one was mailed to me, that one's left on my door.
The same.
Yeah, it's the same. She just took.
There's another one that's left on my door. I know I got another email.
Oh, so this is a notice to quit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For the record, you might want to recite what you're reading.
Okay, why don't you read that into the record?
We've received, it's dated April 29th, 2024. It's a notice of lease non-renewal and a notice to vacate premises from the landlord Emerson Living LLC to Cheryl Tencio at 233 Benham Road, number 12, W12, Groton, Connecticut 06340. Notice is hereby given to Cheryl Tencio, the above parties currently on a 1-year lease, to deliver up and quit the premises you currently hold as the tenant of Emerson Living LLC at the above address on or before May 31st, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. I think that this puts us in a different situation because this is essentially a notice to quit isn't within our purview.
It's a notice to quit. Do you have a copy of the notice where it says your rent is increased to 1,700 and?
You were given this instead?
Yes, and it's verbally told me that he told me twice it was $17.95.
But it's not in writing?
No.
Oh,
I think it's my understanding that this body can only make decisions based on the amount of rent or
Yes,
amount
that's
of
correct,
security
that's correct.
deposit.
You're not an eviction agency.
Correct.
Right.
So this would need to go somewhere else. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
That's right. You're talking about the amount of rent and determining whether it it's excessive. So, what evidence do you have that the rent is actually going to be 1,745?
Other than what's on the website, which is $1,900 for a one bedroom. He told me it's gonna be $1,795 for me. We
Okay.
don't have anything in writing.
Now, but does the landlord say that that's the amount that's going to be charged going forward?
Or absolutely not. It's for a renovated, completely rehabbed unit. Not for an existing unit that hasn't been upgraded or warrants any. There's no justification for rent increase of that nature
Okay, well,
on anybody if there's not been any upgrades made.
what-
If you look at, which I can provide, I don't know, it's on my phone. I didn't realize, I didn't like print anything out, but I have it on my phone. Ledger indicate, I mean, the rent was $30, $135 as of June for July going forward.
well, going forward, what would the landlord be proposing for the rent for the next year in the lease?
Would be a 13% increase over the
What's that,
1,000.
what's that in dollars?
It's $136 increase.
136.
136.
$136 over 1,050,
Mhm.
which totals. I'm terrible at math.
1186.
I mean,
1186.
now is that the total amount? There's some sort of community fee, which is discussed in here.
That would be for, again, a rehab unit. We have Wi-Fi provided in that case. There's additional amenities that are provided.
So it's not applicable. to
This is, the unit we're talking about is not a rehab unit. So it's a total of, again,
1,186.
now, if there had been, if the $100 increase had been continued, it would be 1,150.
Correct.
So we're talking about 30 some odd dollars a month differential.
Well, can I ask a clarifying question? Because you are speaking as though she has the opportunity to stay in her unit, but this appears to say that she can't stay in her unit regardless of the rent. So-
There was additional communication after that, I think in writing, that I believe you actually forwarded to me, Marshall, that between Cheryl, Ms. Atencio, and property manager, it was discussed that month to month, going forward in the unit, especially, there's no opportunity for the resident to find a place to live, certainly not on short notice. We said she could, absolutely stay in the unit month to month going forward as long as she needed to.
And the month-to-month rate for just making sure we're clear is $11.85. That's not, you're not extending her the opportunity to sign a one-year lease. Am I saying that accurately?
We had not discussed that. If that's something everyone feels strongly about, we could do that. I thought at a certain point, the flexibility.
It seems to have the
Resident.
ability to communicate. She thinks it's 1,700 and some odd a month, and you think it's 1,000.
1,180.
Yeah, so if you're
It's two different
hundreds of
units.
dollars apart, is it worthwhile to adjourn the meeting so you can go outside and see if you can agree on what the rent would be going forward?
The property manager had been reaching out. In the corporate office, we have a lot of properties we have nationwide. We don't typically, our managers communicate these matters with our residents. So our understanding was that manager was unable to reach the resident.
But your understanding it would be the lower amount would be satisfactory.
So we were proposing, like I said to Marshall when I spoke to him, in my mind, it's such a misunderstanding.
And would that amount be acceptable to you, the $1,185? Is that an amount that is?
I'm looking for a lease because I'm like 20 years anniversary at EE, and they'll do an extensive security check. you know, if they don't see that I have a lease, I'll look like I'm in trouble and everything, you know, will make me, oh, we can easily bribe her or something, so that's my main concern.
You are looking for a long-term lease, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
You're looking to be committed in a
Yeah.
long-term lease,
Yes,
that's
for-
important
for
for the
my
security of
security,
your
yes.
job. Okay, I understand.
So you would like, if possible, to see the, at least so along the terms of a lower amount. For a longer amount of time. Such as 12 months like you used to have.
Yeah, I just
Going
want something
forward.
in writing saying, you know, I won't get an eviction notice.
That's what you would want.
Yes,
All right.
yes, I said, oh, that's my security. And another thing is, when I asked her, this is my 9 months, asked her, can I renew it? She said, no, they said something to the extent of, no, we want you out of there.
Which again, that doesn't fall under the purview of this committee, correct?
Well, you can determine if the proposed rent increase is excessive. And if you determine it's excessive, you can impose a lower rent for a specific amount of time going forward.
But we can't force the landlord to offer a year-long lease.
You can impose a time period that your decision will be effective, such as 12 months, you can.
The two different things, though.
Yeah, no,
We could continue with a month-to-month lease and agree not to raise the rent for 12 months. So that's what's up.
Correct, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't be able to end the lease under the terms of a month-to-month lease. We can't force them to sign a year-long lease.
No, but you can impose that your decision can last for a certain amount of time.
Right, so if we say this 1185 is a fine rent and they have to rent it to her for that amount for as long as they rent to her, that doesn't mean they have to rent to her for a whole year. That just means if they do rent to her for whatever the term we decide that rent is acceptable, that's the rent, but it doesn't make them required to rent to her for that whole time period.
And you can, your decision can be in effect for 1 year. I think so if it's 1135 or whatever the number is, that decision can be in effect for 1 year. It won't be a lease. It won't be a lease with 8 pages of terms and conditions. But it will be a decision which will be in effect for 1 year, and the parties will have to abide by it.
And can I make-
If
can I
she
make this
resides,
easier?
if she resides there, they would have to rent it for that amount, but. For example, if we were to set the rent at that rate and she decides not to pay it, they can still evict her
Well, if she
according to the
if she-
terms
if
of
she-
whatever contract there is. So if there's a month-to-month tenancy, they can, according to a month-to-month tenancy, whatever that notice is, they can still give her a notice to quit.
Well, they would have to abide by this decision. So
That
this
they're-
decision would set a month-to-month tenancy of whatever that number is, list 1135. But if she doesn't pay the 1135, or if you decide to say it's 1150 or some other number, I mean, it was 1050 and there were $100 increments, so you might want to keep that in mind as you decide your decision. So whatever number you reach.
Right, but we're only picking the number. We're not able to tell them, you have to rent for her for 20 more years. We can't do that.
Only 1 year. Yeah, you can say for the next 12 months, the tenant will have to pay to the landlord, whatever number you pick. But then at the end of that time, your decision is over, it's ended, and you can't enforce it anymore. And the landlord does not have to abide by it, and the tenant does not have to abide by it. If during the next 12 months, the tenant doesn't pay the rent, the landlord can take steps to evict the tenant.
So we effectively can force them to sign a lease with the tenant.
Not to sign a lease, you just force them to abide by your decision.
Can I make this easier?
That's a difference. There's a difference. It's not a 12-page lease that they have to sign.
Let's here, if you want to clarify and maybe restate what I'm trying to
I
say.
know exactly what you're trying to say. If it's just easier for us to sign the 12-month lease, we'll sign the 12-month lease. We can put in language that allows the resident flexibility. She finds housing that's suitable for her needs. She can terminate the lease with 30 days notice for no penalty. That'd be sufficient. Would that make?
If they want to, they can enter into a lease. Lease is an agreement between two parties. And that would supersede our decision because
Congratulations.
they would do it that way. Because they've entered into an agreement which supersedes our decision.
And all the terms and conditions of the previous lease then that was previously agreed to are still held over. So she agrees not to bring in roommates and so all of the conditions are still held over. It's just, this is an additional condition agreed to by both parties.
Yeah, well, I suggest they
Or-
put a new, to put a new dollars into a new lease, sign it that way.
Well, I think then the discussion for the three of us is, do we think that the 1185 is a suitable amount of rent? I think we need to decide that first.
Any information I can provide that would make that decision, determination easier.
It's a 1-bedroom, correct?
Yes.
I mean, just based on the market and that percentage of increase, I don't think that's wildly outrageous. It's only slightly higher than the previous increase was.
And I have a lot of stuff saying that that's about the average. I mean, 1150, 1350.
Right, so I mean, to me, I think 1185 is not an outrageous increase. The one concern I did have, and I don't know, the lease that we were sent is the lease that began last September. And I know that the laws have changed about late fees. I just want to point that out in case you didn't know that.
I didn't.
October 1st of last year, there were a bunch of changes to landlord tenant laws in Connecticut. And one of them is, I believe it caps late fees at $50.
Okay.
And your late fee in your lease says it's $70. So just a heads up on that you might want to look at that.
Even easier is that, residents never been late on her rent,
Yeah.
so.
But
Might
just
it wouldn't be relevant.
I just saw that and it raised a red flag that, because I know that there were a couple minor things that changed in the Connecticut state law for leases, and that was one of them, was a cap on late fees. And that's the only thing in the lease that I kind of stuck out in my head. But I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but I think 1185. The tenant seems okay with that number, and I think that that's a reasonable increase.
Someone has to make a motion.
What would the motion be? Go ahead.
Somebody has to move that.
I'll make a motion to accept the amount of $1,185. And the landlord's,
Per month.
per month,
For
correct.
12 months.
and the landlord's proposition that they sign a 12-month lease with the tenant.
Your decision would be for 12 months, starting
June 1st
June 1st and ending on May 31st,
of 2025.
2025. And any late fees would, before today, would be waived. Because you didn't have a chance to pay the rent.
There are none.
Okay. That would be your motion.
Yes, I so move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And there's your decision.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for attending. Worked it out.
So
Communication works.
we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
We
Motion
Good, very good.
Made, carried.
You did your job.
Right on.
You were decisive.
Thank you.
Yeah. What we,